Hey everybody, welcome to News by Muse. We are back for another great National Geographic documentary, Cult Massacre, One Day in Jonestown. We're here with former representative of the 14th District, United States Representative Jackie Speier. Jackie, to relive this over again now, so 46 years later, through this documentary, what has it been like to see and to relive and to tell the story? Because you've been telling this story even when you got back into when you won the seat that former representative Leo Ryan had once held. What is it like to retell the story now for
Right.
a generation?
Well, it's unsettling, to say the least. This particular documentary is probably the best that's been done. It has gathered footage that I have never seen before. And as I watched it, it was almost as if it was happening to someone else. As I looked at the video, I thought, like I wasn't part of it, except that I was, obviously, because it was so unreal. And when you're in the eye of the hurricane, you're just there. And for me, I thought it was going to be the end of my life at age 28. So um, even though I sustained, injuries that were deadly under most circumstances, I survived. And so I realized that there was a reason. And I made a commitment to dedicate the rest of my life to public service because I was given a second chance at life.
Mhm.
But what the lessons of Jonestown provide us with are one, our State Department let us down. This should be mandatory viewing by all new foreign service officers because even though there were defectors from Jonestown, there was one defector that actually found shelter at the embassy in Georgetown, Guyana, provided all the information about what was going on. The State Department did nothing. The parents complained. They urged the State Department to get more involved, and they didn't. So that's one of the lessons. The other lesson is there were many complaints about the People's Temple in San Francisco, but because Jim Jones had such a close relationship with the mayor and other board members of the Board of Supervisors, he was given kind of a pass. And again, failure by the leadership locally in addressing the issues. There was gun running going down. Was there ever an investigation? There was Social Security fraud. Was there ever an investigation? There were complaints about people being held there against their will. There was never a legitimate investigation as to whether or not that was true
Yeah, and I was only
until Congressman Ryan went down.
yeah, yeah, like I was only 3 years old when all this happened. So I was talking to my
You're making
dad.
me feel older.
Well, no, because my dad was like the same way. He's like, I
Yeah.
forgot. I forgot about it, but I was talking to my dad about it because I mean, I didn't know much at that time, and he was like, "Yeah, oh, yeah, this was something that was if you, in San Francisco, it was something that because we have family in San Francisco, and we heard about what was going on, and it was when looking at the documentary and really looking at Jim Jones, even though in my head I'm thinking of another Jim who's in the house right now. Um, it's kind of scary when you look at everything that's happened over the last 46 years and to revisit this and see the similarities between Waco, Branch Davidian, and others, and see the similarities. And I'm just like, this is crazy to revisit, and especially at this time. What are your thoughts
Right.
about people are seeing this and people who are a new generation who never experienced any of this that we
Well, cults flourish because they call themselves religions
Mhm.
and appear to have the protection of the First Amendment.
Mhm.
But criminal conduct is never allowed, whether you're a church or an individual or an organization. So the fact that we have for so long, as a government, as law enforcement, allowed these fairly disturbing organizations that conduct themselves in manners that violate so many laws to continue to flourish is a problem.
Mhm.
And it's going to require all of us to be much more vigilant in terms of protecting people from many of the conducts that were engaged in Jonestown and other cults. And it always is around physical, mental, sexual abuse. And beyond that, oftentimes there's fraud involved, as there was in Jonestown, where social, social security checks were taken from many of the seniors. They preyed on people who were lost, who didn't have family, who were looking for someone to take care of them. And Jim Jones offered that prescription.
Yeah, and that's what's scary. To me, it's so scary because like you equate it to what is going on now. And you look at what is going on now, and it's scary to see that one, nothing's gonna, like, every decade it seems like there's a new one that pops up, and now we're in one of the biggest and scariest ones, which I like. It feels like a cult and what we're going through right now. And
Oh, I've actually attributed Donald Trump's appeal to a
Mhm,
cult-like appeal. I
yeah,
mean, people lose sight of reality
mhm,
and follow him regardless of what he does. Jim Jones, regardless of him beating parishioners, regardless of him sexually abusing them, regardless of the child abuse that went on, people continue to follow him.
yeah. And that's the one thing, like my sister works for the government still to this day. And we talk about and we see it within the government. She does. And it's just kind of crazy. And we're just looking at each other like, how? And that's why I think this documentary really taps into understanding the mind of a leader like Jim Jones and
Mhm.
others that we've seen over the day.
Or or the ability of individuals to manipulate other individuals uh, fairly easily.
Mhm. Exactly. And that's the one thing like I want to touch upon next is the present because of it is so close to what this documentary says to what's going on now. It may be two different subjects altogether, but we're seeing this already, this cult of personality, I guess you could call it, between the Donald Trump MAGA movement and the way people like he could do nothing wrong. And January 6th is a perfect example where they're
Mhm.
dismissing something that occurred and it's like it's okay. Oh, no problem. And it feels like that now when you look at it. You were there on January 6th. You were
I
still
was, I
a
was,
congressperson. Please.
I was actually in the gallery of
Yeah.
the um, House of Representatives when that happened, and I remember, being told, "Put your head down, take your member pin off," and then I heard a shot ring out in the speaker's lobby, and I thought, "Oh my God, I I survived the jungles of Guyana, and I'm going to lose my life in what we call this tabernacle of democracy." That's how fearful and concerned I was that we were living that. A cult leader is someone who is charismatic,
Mhm.
who is a megalomaniac, and who instills fear
Mhm.
into people and anguish. And that's commonplace with cults. It's also, I think, a reflection on Donald Trump as well.
Yeah. Representative Spears, that thank you so much for stopping with us. We could go on for a full 30 minutes just on the topic, the documentary and this topic, because it's so on point to what's going on today. And I think people need to watch this documentary just to get a heads up of what's going on even in our world today. So thank you so much for stopping with us.
Okay, thank you, Michael.
Oh.